Oh,
All right. It's 8 a.m. Let's get this ball going. Me, Daniel, Ele, and Yellow.
good morning, Commissioners. I thought maybe we'd take just a second. I know that most of you met Ben this morning, but I thought maybe we'd take a second for Ben to introduce himself, tell a little bit. I didn't tell him this. Tell us a little bit about himself, his relationship with the city over the years, just for a second before we started.
Hi, my name is Ben Hart. I work for Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. I'm actually your municipal advisor. But I played two different roles at the firm. In today's local government staffing, it's really hard to fill a finance director position. My past, I've been in local government for about 33 years, over 30 years, and have been doing this, passing budgets for 25. And most of that time has been in a finance director seat, very similar to what Donna had. Well, exactly what she had. I did that for about 15 years and loved every minute of it, oddly enough. But been working for Baker Tilly for about 9 years, and we do this, I do this, and I've got a team of people that help fill this role for cities all over Kansas and Missouri, for that matter. I live in Kansas and enjoy coming to Newton every time I do get the chance to, just because it's rural, and that's how I grew up, is rural. And I really appreciate driving into a place where you have a sprayer, a John Deere sprayer at the four-way stop,
Welcome
and you're
to
coming the other way. That's like being home. So, yeah, no, I appreciate you having me here today.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Let's kick this off by maybe just outlining the next few days for commissioners who have who have been through the work session process. This will be very, very apparent to you. For our new commissioners, maybe not so much. We are taking a different approach this year to our budget. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with giving you kind of highlights of where we're at, a narrative of where we're going, then we're going to jump into some financials that depict where we were and where we're going. Today will not include individual presentations from our department heads. In the past, they each came forward, they presented kind of what was going on in their departments, individual line budgets. Those budgets were what we would call a best estimate because we didn't have assessed valuation. And then the following day, we would go into financials. We're taking a much higher level approach. And the reason for that is there was guidance to staff to be better stewards, if we can be better stewards of city resources. And that means how can we keep doing what we're doing and be more effective with the cash that's entrusted to us? And that's what we're doing. With Ben coming on and his assistants and going through this process, this will look and feel a little bit different. We would love your feedback. If you absolutely hate it and would like to go back to the way it was, we've asked staff to, because this is a hands-off approach for them. They are here as a supportive role. Please feel free to ask questions, call on them. They are here. They serve at the pleasure as well. So I wanted to start off with this. This is going to be a little bit different, and we appreciate the grace and we appreciate the willingness to allow us to kind of change things up a bit. So, okay, slide number 1. So the focus this year, with what has been going on internally, externally, in relation to the market, the economy, our residents, we thought it would be important to talk about what the philosophy was this year. And this year, what we are calling it a stabilizing year. We are growing, and we can continue to grow. We believe we can continue to grow and do our best to stabilize our finances. And so that's what we did. 3 intentional focuses include identifying opportunities to optimize our spending, We will go more into detail about what exactly that means and work more efficiently, but staying strong and effective. So I'm not saying more with less, and I'm not saying less with less. I said, let's sustain what we're doing with the dollars that we've been entrusted. Number 2, sustain investments in people, services, and infrastructure. We just finished our comp plan and we finished a survey. Our community is generally happy with the services that we provide. The difficult part here is that what we're trying to navigate is what are they willing to pay for? And that's what we're going to go through the next 2 days. Sustain investments in people. I know that you hear this constantly, but our people are our greatest asset. Without our people, we cannot continue our mission. So that was a priority in our budget this year. And lastly, continued support for sustainable growth from a conservative approach. Again, doing what we've been doing in new and different and ingenious ways. Okay. So speaking of people are our greatest asset, I thought we'd highlight citywide key updates for personnel. Personnel is at least 60% of our budget, so that's where our dollars are invested. In the I put 2025 and 2026 because this does fold over into last year. So we're starting off with finance. We've had some turnover in our leadership in finance, with that leading to Ben being here. So thank you very much, Ben. We really appreciate you. Our plan is to continue to do that through the end of the year. That will allow us to get through budget, use the fall and the winter to see where we're at and see how we can better set us up to have a finance director, or sustain a contract with Baker Tilly. I mean, Donna was here for 10 years. She left her mark, and we dearly miss her. So if you're watching, Donna, we miss you dearly. With transition comes it's change, and change equals loss. So we're working through that transition, and it's been a tad bit difficult, but we're learning. And Lisa and her team have been amazing. I know she's here. She's going to leave here in a minute to take another meeting, but they've been incredible in helping put the infrastructure of this document together. So we have a solid finance department. Information technology. I don't know if you remember, last year we had some changes in the information technology department, which is a small but mighty staff. The department positions have transitioned 100% in the last year. Again, that change, that transition, albeit difficult, is going incredibly well. We think, we've lost people who've been here a long time, and it was a great loss. Brenda was a great asset to this organization. But people have stepped up. We have staff who've stepped up and are filling roles and following the mission and guidance of how can we do what we're doing a little more effectively, and make better use of our resources. So they're doing a great job. Kudos to the IT department. The engineering division. It looks completely different than it did a year ago. As you all know, Suzanne Loomis, our public works director, who was here almost 30 years, she transitioned, retired, and Ed Bonham is our new public works director and has been doing a fantastic job with staff picking up different roles. We've had a change, and we've created a new deputy assistant public works director, and we've reassigned duties, and a lot of that has to do with we are growing. We are finding ways to ensure we have the capacity to do the projects that we need, but it means letting go of some things and using all of the assets that our people have, all the skills that they have. So there's been some shifting in that department, and it's been great, and the team they've stepped up. Human resources transition. In the last year to year and a half, I know this kind of goes back, and I know you've heard this before, but our HR department has also changed over 100%. Megan has led that transition, and she's doing an awesome job as well. And I know you're hearing a theme here. We've had a lot of change. And HR has doubled down on that change and taken an opportunity to memorialize policy, memorialize processes, and you'll hear more about that here in the coming day. The next one is actually a little bit different than the ones I've been talking about, is our assistant city attorney / prosecutor. I know Chris isn't here today, but like the finance director, that position has proven difficult to fill. We are working through that. We are actively navigating that, and we feel confident that we can fill it in this next round. We've shifted the job description, we've looked at market pay, all that jazz, and we're confident we can fill that in the near future, but that has been proven difficult to fill. When this note was put in here, we were fully staffed in EMS, fire EMS and PD. I'm afraid to ask if we're still staffed as of this morning. Are we fully staffed? Yeah, as you know. That's a good thing. I think the trend in fire EMS and PD has been less turnover in the last couple of years. It's still, I think it's important to say that even fully staffed, there is capacity restrictions. Both departments have expressed need for additional staff. They know that we're growing. So fully staffed, yes. They also we have deployments and people who are hurt, and that has proven an opportunity to find ways to fill gaps in the departments. So you'll hear more about that in the next day as well. So those are kind of some key staffing changes to kind of set up the personnel budgets that will be presented to you in the coming day. Okay, the key projects. I'm going to kick it over to Rebecca. We're gonna tag team this morning.
All right. Well, there's a lot of things on here, and obviously this does not encapsulate the majority of everyone's day-to-day work, but these are things that we wanted to highlight, make sure you're all aware of, because these are really, really important as we continue to address all of those items, like Daniela said, of trying to be more efficient with resources and make sure we're serving the needs. So the first thing on our list here is police flock cameras. Flock cameras are another tool in the toolbox of our police department so that they can more easily and more effectively do their jobs, apprehend the people. It keeps us tied into the greater Wichita network. It keeps them with an incredibly powerful resource and allows them to move like their peers and other private entities that are utilizing this resource. And so that's a pretty exciting.
Can you just define really quickly the difference between a flock camera and then the body cam? Are they the same?
Sure, that's a great question. And Chief might want to jump in, but a flock camera is on the street. It's mounted to a pole.
Oh, okay.
And so you'll see those when you're driving around. It's really to just be able to catch a vehicle that may be moving. And I'm sure Chief could explain more on this if he'd like.
Yeah, just at a 30,000-foot level, I'll kind of give you a brief. I want to get with you and explain to you in detail. So if you have questions, I know there's been a lot of concerns in a lot of other communities about too much oversight over the community. I don't want it to look like that, because that's not exactly what it is. What these cameras are just a snapshot, literally a picture that they take. They don't identify the drivers, occupants, just a vehicle and its tag number, which we already have access to anyway just every day. There's a tag on the back of a vehicle. Everybody has access to it, and we can run those tags at random at any time without cause, just like everybody else. So this is nothing more than that. It just protects or tells us who's coming and going from our community. Very similar to a lot of people have, I kind of give you an analogy, like a Ring camera system on your home or a Nest or any other security camera, that gives you video. And that's why do people do that? Is because they want to protect their home. The flock camera is really no different. Although it's not a video, it's an actual picture. We just want to protect our community. And there's just another technology that's out there. It's at our fingertips, and it ties us into a lot of other cameras, several hundred in Wichita and in surrounding counties. We're kind of the last remaining community that doesn't have this kind of technology, so it's kind of kept us out of the loop. So we're just going to tie that together. Okay. So that's the 30,000 foot, but I'll be happy to explain further in greater detail at a later time.
Thank you. So that is one way, again, trying to be more efficient and effective with those dollars that are entrusted to us. The next is our HR policy review. You heard Daniela talk about memorializing items and processes. This is a really big project that the HR director, Megan's been leading and taking on. Our policy has been reviewed many, many times through the years, and it's not necessarily out of date by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a good way to make sure that those things that maybe one of our long-term employees, they always knew how to interpret it, or everybody knew, but it wasn't written down. This gives us a full 360 approach to make sure that we're not relying on a long-term employee's memory, but it's all written down, it's all notated. We know where this file goes to that procedure, to that policy, to that form. And so this is a really great endeavor to make sure that we have that sustainability in staffing and succession planning. Next up is a favorite, utilities conversion from cubic feet to gallons. You might remember that this is a difficult one. When I first heard about this, in my ignorance, I thought you just have to change the way you print it on the bill, right? They're just as a number conversion, not realizing that this involved infrastructure and utility billing, and it's a very involved and has been costly process. So this has been going on semi-organically with the conversion of the meter reads, and if Ed or Lisa want to talk more about the project, but I think that it's definitely one of those things that's been on everyone's priority list, but it has been kind of a large project to move on, and just kind of communicating that it's not just clicking a button to calculate differently, that this is actual infrastructure in the ground, it's infrastructure in our systems and in our processes and in our payment systems. So moving that forward, we're excited to continue that process. The public safety RFP, we've had some conversations between, again, our fire EMS and police a lot about capacity. There's all of this growth happening, which we're so excited for, which the commission has been working on and has been planning on through their foresight for 15 plus years. But that is going to lead to new needs. It's going to lead to new needs in buildings, in people, in resources, in that distribution. And this public safety RFP, the goal is to be able to get some expert planning on that to help us think forward. How do we satisfy those needs? How can we do both and, if at all possible? We want to be able to respond both to our new industrial manufacturing growth and continue to support our current residents, our social service programs, the kids at school, and this will hopefully give us a great planning tool for that. One other thing that's been in conversations when we talk about that, you'll notice in your personnel budgets when we get to it that Fire EMS and PD have some of the largest personnel budgets. They work incredibly hard every single day, and their job cannot be automated. There's no software that can do what they do. So that being said, there's conversations continuing about how that funding from the county gets broken down, and that's kind of a larger conversation. I don't know if Daniela wants to mention a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I might defer also to our chief if he would like to add anything, because he was recently at the county. You all know the rising cost of providing services from a public safety perspective continues to rise, particularly in the fire EMS world. The people, the commodities, the supplies, the EMS vehicles, fuel, all of that continues to rise with, I think it's fair to say, reimbursement rates are not keeping up. Things are costing more. The revenue's not coming in. And so with that, in partnership with fire EMS chiefs across the county, chief headed up a an ask at the county for additional monies to support that fire EMS countywide. And I might defer to him just a little so he could give you kind of the 30,000-foot view of how that panned out and what the next steps are.
Yes, thank you, Daniela. We met, kind of a little backstory on this, in 2023, we met collectively as EMS providers in the county to essentially convey the message to the county administration and commission of the fragility of the EMS system within Harvey County. Due to the staffing concerns with a lot of our volunteer agencies around the county, it was essentially a house of cards. So if one service could not staff their service for the 24 hours as what is dictated in legislation, then they were on the cusp of losing their license, and they would not be able to provide EMS service for their location, which then others would be obligated to pick it up. There's no legal requirement to pick it up, but there's this thing out there called ethics. So in 2023, that was the initial ask. The county came forward with some additional funding on top of the annual distribution that you're all familiar with. It was not near what the ask was, but it was better than nothing. So Newton graciously took a back seat to those funds to ensure the stability of the outside agencies. As time has gone by, those needs of additional staffing, the burden on the taxpayer has obviously continued. So we went back to the table and again have made an additional ask to continue the initial funding amount as well as an additional funding amount. Part of that is also because the city of Sedgwick, at the onset of this initial request, they didn't have their own service. They were contracting with Halstead at the time. Since then, they have been able to spin up and reestablish their local EMS system. So instead of 4 providers in the county to divide the initial funding, now there's 5. And so we're asking for additional funding to help augment some of that staffing burden on the taxpayer.
Thank you. Moving on to our next item here. I'm not going to spend too much time. Brian wasn't able to make us. He had a family need. But you all did just spend a work session discussing pretty much this topic of airport industrial expansion with the county. Again, going back to your growth trajectories and plans and those long-term ideas, this is where we're seeing a lot of staff time and investment, looking at ways how to make it work, really making sure we always have the both and here, that we're being able to support the growth of the airport and the industrial parks around it, and that we're able to meet the needs of our community members and you all. It's one of the items I know for the past many years has been to increase the tax base in this manufacturer industrial region. So again, it's kind of fuzzy on all of the pieces, but again, we went through a lot of them at that work session, but we're happy to go into more if need be. Internally, we again, on trying to be more effective and efficient, is streamlining the city support services. So city support services are all of those internal services that we have to do every day to make sure we function as an organization. That's like HR, IT, building maintenance. There's probably a few more I'm forgetting, but they're really, really necessary. And again, back when we maybe had long-term employees with their own informal networks because they knew somebody, oh, I'll just text so-and-so, things were getting done. But we've had a lot of turnover, as Daniela mentioned, and we're a lot busier. To keep up with having to be more efficient and effective, we are utilizing single point systems, tracking systems. So this is what you think of as a ticketing system. We can use iWorks for some of them. We can use other systems that we're implementing, but puts in the work order, puts in the ticket, tracks the ticket, You see this all the time in organizations, so it's kind of just a growing pain as our organization kind of grows up and has to continue to be more effective and efficient in these processes. You'll see it in your budgets, especially in the building maintenance and the IT portions. The IT budget, when we get to it, all of IT stuff got put in IT budget. It had been diffused. It's now consolidated. Overall growth was not very much. And in building maintenance as well, facilities ended up in a facilities budget. And just to kind of streamline it, so the people that are doing the things can track all of the projects and see a bigger scope. And there's opportunity for efficiencies as well, bulk buying or timelining or something like that. So again, just an internal piece as we continue to pivot.
And I'd like to, something that happened just yesterday, an example of how this worked in our favor is we have our public works director who oversees building maintenance is now made aware of infrastructure building improvements that are happening throughout the city. In the past, not always the case. If you're a department and you in a building, you kind of took care of what was in that building. Well, with this sort of partnership going on now, we had a department reach out and say, I'm looking at redoing this bridge that's on the golf course, Destin. And with that came we are currently working on an RFP for bridge work in town. How can we somehow combine that so as to decrease mobilization cost, get, what's the saying? Bigger bang for our buck. Yeah. So it works. There's a little bit of growing pains. And part of that is I've been used to doing it on my own. Staff would just do that. That partnership is going to take a little bit of muddling through, but I just wanted to give you an example of how well that could work.
Yeah. All right. And then we are now in year 2 of the implementation of our classification and compensation study. As you might remember, last year when we hired our consultant and you all aimed for it to stay in the 60th kind of percentile in the region, benchmarked, you'll see that in your personnel budgets that we still continue to keep that. We kept the ability for up to a 3% merit increase in all staff members, and then their 3% COLA, which keeps us at that 60th percentile market rate right now. Trying not to lose any gains in that. There's some other pieces in the compensation internally that we're rolling out, whether that's continuing the Voice of the Employees survey, incorporating those things in our employee conference, other kind of softer pieces of it that continue to build that engagement, build those relationships, and kind of work through those task lines.
I think it's important to note that the staff of this organization noticed the effort of this commission in their decision to implement this plan. And I think it didn't go unnoticed. I just want all 4 of you to know, and I just messaged Leroy to see if he's coming. But we did a VOE and we did some departmental visits, and the overwhelming majority of staff are very thankful, very gracious. They feel adequately compensated, and that compensation is more than just pay. It's benefits, it's how they feel coming to work. With that, the implementation part, I would say, is the easy part. The sustaining it is going to be the difficult part, and we have talked through what that looks like. And so we made our darn good effort to try and sustain that in this budget. And I just wanted to share that with you. We can say we are paying above market, and with that comes a great benefit package and a great place to work. So thank you.
On the more infrastructure side, now that we've done the people infrastructure, the other last bullet on this slide is this continued extension of the city trail system. As you know, we've had the city's trail system in pieces put in, and our public works director and his team have been working very hard to get this next extension piece in connecting the community through these biking and walking trails is really an important amenity and serves as an alternate transportation. And so it's definitely been the things that come to us and through our partners that bring this up as a key resource. Okay, moving right along. Big projects that you have been seeing are the utility master plan, which is now complete. And when we go through the CIP, you're going to see some items marked in there. The utility master plan is very dependent on development, but this plan gives us the ability to see when and what is going to need to grow before we get to it. So this was a really key piece in continuing this growth movement. And then that implementing it through that CIP. We are wrapping up this 10-year comprehensive plan, Newton Next. I know you've all been participating in it. You've been seeing drafts. I thank all of you for the intense amount of time and reading. I know it's going to be a big document, and we'll be bringing back the final draft to you and to the community after these budget work sessions. Staff actually just got the first final draft, if you will, earlier this week. So this is really, really exciting. A comprehensive plan allows us to take what you all are hearing, what the community is hearing, and put it into workable, actionable steps for staff so that we can make the plan and work the plan. And we're able to bring you things like a CIP and a budget that makes sense so that we can actually put an actual project and dollars to those initiatives, those goals, and those dreams that you all have. One thing else that's really exciting that's part of that plan, but a little bit separate, is our depot district redevelopment. So we've been working for quite a number of years to get our property that we own at 320 North Main prepared for development. It is now there. That is superbly exciting. And you're going to hear more on Tuesday about the whole project. So I don't know if we want to go into it too much detail because we've got it set for your regular city commission plan. But our business development director, Zach's been working very hard with the rest of our staff to get this and pair it with the depot and that option that you all put on and really reinvigorate that piece. That connects both kind of our south and north of the tracks of downtown and to kind of add a little bit of a destination right there in the middle of the city. Not to be left out, maybe you're noticing them around town or on TV. I did. But we have expanded community marketing and outreach efforts. I see our local ads on the TV stations that we have done. Our communications director, Aaron, has put in an incredible amount of work with Sarah to hit all types of communication, whether it's your city desk, whether it's being at a local event, or like I said, the television ads, the billboard ads, Facebook. However we can communicate with people, however we can tell our story, however we can be there to listen as well. They've been really, really doing an incredible job of just making the city available as a resource and opening up that relationship, because sometimes this building is not the most comfortable place to have those conversations. So, and they've been good about getting all of us out there. Been to all sorts of places where staff doesn't always get a chance to go, schools and libraries and other things.
I'd like to remind you that the transitioning of a position to hire on Sarah was for that community engagement outreach piece, and the overarching goal of that community engagement marketing outreach is to strengthen the foundation of trust in this community, and through that, thus strengthen community attachment. If people feel emotionally connected to where they live and trust their local government, they will be happier, they will be healthier, they will stick around longer. And that is the foundation of the work that's happening in that department. I just wanted to kind of bring that back because has also been a transition, and there has been lots of feelings about that, which I'm sure Erin could tell you all about it, but bringing it back to the sole purpose, I just thought is important.
Perfect. Kind of the pair to that, is our Main Street efforts. So while City Desk and the community marketing and those outreach are really to talk about the city as an organization, the city as your local government serving you, Main Street is the effort of us helping the business owners in our core areas, especially our downtown, to rehabilitate, revitalize, and make it where their projects can pencil. Make it where you can afford to be a small business owner in the town where you grew up, on the main street where you remember walking. It also helps if the businesses can cash flow, if they can be successful, if they have all the tools they need to succeed, whether that's in training or partnership dollars or whatever it is that we can offer, or the Main Street program can offer, then they can also work to rehabilitate the buildings that they're in. As you know, and I know I speak about it a lot, Main Street comes out of a historic preservation arm. It's very, very, very costly to rehabilitate a building if you can't have a thriving business and maybe multiple businesses. Maybe you have rental units at the top of your building and your store at the bottom, and maybe you do pop-up events on the weekends. You really have to have a lot of activity to make those numbers cash flow, and that's the whole goal of the Main Street effort. The second piece, it's a 4-point approach. The second piece I want to go to besides that business is that it gives organization. It lets people know who to talk to, when to talk to them, kind of gives them a key point of contact so that Jen, our Main Street coordinator, she can be that contact for those business owners of, do we need to talk to the chamber? Do we need to talk to the state? Do we need to talk to the city? Do we need to talk to other entity XYZ? So you have that economic development piece, the organizational piece. Another key part is placemaking. Goes back to that feelings of connectedness. If people don't feel connected to come back to their hometown, if they don't feel connected to walk around or to feel like this is a comfortable place, then those places don't get activated. Then people go find that community in another way. And so I think you've really seen that success in the Third Thursday effort so far, some of the other concert series events, to make it where when people think about home, these are the things that we want them to remember. So that's a quick 3 points of our 4-point approach. Yeah, there's marketing, but we've kind of covered that. And so you'll see in our budget a little bit of monies to help support those continued efforts, because it is a very work intensive. 2 other great successes that, just to kind of end our key projects on a really good note, is that the forward thinking of this commission has really paid off. We are celebrating the 15th anniversary of the Meridian Event Center this summer. So it takes a lot of foresight to build an event center when there really aren't a lot in town, and to fund it and to bring that amenity that people were asking for. And now, as you can see, that there are other options, that it did the job it was meant to do. And it's been a stunning success and continues to be kind of the prime location here in the region. The next is our very much award-winning golf course celebrating its 20th anniversary. So again, both of these are investments that this body has made in prior years, and you're really seeing them shine now as they come to their full fruition. And I think I'm going to hand it back to Daniela.
You want to maybe take a second to see if you have any questions about the projects that we're working on? Questions, thoughts, ideas? Okay. Okay, next in our presentation is setting up how we approach the 2027 budget. So our budget is split up into pretty much personnel lines, contractuals and commodities, and then our capital outlay. So with the chunk of our spending in personnel and then capital, depending on what's going on in that department. For personnel, we requested our leadership to do 2 things. One, we did build in a merit increase. 2, that we built in a COLA. The COLA, if you remember, last year, there was a discussion about a transition or a change, an increase in a COLA from a 2% to a 3%. There was an overwhelming response from staff and appreciation for that. Our compensation consultant made a recommendation that we increase it so as to keep up with market pay. And this commission agreed last year to support a COLA that reflected a combination of inflation rate or Department of Labor, I forget what it's called, Department of Labor, the labor inflation rate. And so taking a snapshot of when we took last year to now, that labor rate is trending at 3.1 to 3.2%. We budgeted 3%, and we can go into details about what the difference is, which one's low. I believe the direction was one or the other, the lower of the two. We can talk a little bit about that, but those will be shown to you built in the budget. The operating part of the budget, the contractuals, the commodities, and the capital. We requested leadership to provide us what we would call a flat budget. And with the increasing costs of services the city is providing, a flat budget is essentially a cut. Because if our contracts are increasing, the cost of fuel is increasing, you have to offset somewhere else. So there was a lot more thought put into questions being asked. Why are we budgeting this number and in relation to a trend? So we did go back 5 years. Something, I'm not sure if we've done that in the past, but we did do that this year. MER transfers were reviewed for savings opportunities. So what we did this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about it and actually go through it later today, is we have 2 buckets of savings, I'd call them savings, to allow us to purchase the equipment and fund the projects that we need based on a plan that you approve, based on the direction of this commission. The MER, which is our municipal equipment reserve, had been a individual department municipal equipment reserves from 1 year to up to 15 years. And that replacement schedule was tied to a number, which in turn led to a transfer out into that MER. It set us up to replace the things that we needed to replace and give our departments the resources they need to sustain their services. Great plan. Taking your direction and keeping as a flat level, a budget as flat as possible, because people are our biggest expense and transfers are our biggest expense, we concentrated on transfers. How can we make better use of our transfers, but still give our employees the resources they need to buy the trucks and the vehicles and the equipment and the mowers that they need? And so with Ben's help, and maybe Ben can talk a little bit more about this, is instead of looking at them individually, we came up with this holistic approach, a comprehensive approach, where we put all of the equipment, at least in general fund, all the departments that fall into one bucket, if you will. And that bucket was looked at on cost of replacement. Do we have an accurate cost of replacement? If it's in the near replacement cycle, do we need to replace it? Just because it's on a spreadsheet doesn't mean that it's going to be replaced next year. We do have some things, for example, a police vehicle. A police vehicle has a shorter life so as to allow us to trade it in and get the most bang for our buck. We could keep police vehicle. I hope Chief isn't getting hives over there. We could technically wait a couple more years to trade in a police vehicle, but the opportunity cost, it far outweighs the benefit of trading it in at the 4-year mark, I believe is what we're trading in. So there are sweet spots, if you will, of when we get rid of equipment and when we don't. We also have equipment that we just keep forever. And until it literally breaks down, we will not replace it. So it depends on the department. It depends on the need. And so we took a comprehensive approach. We put it all on a spreadsheet and we went through it. That coupled with replacement value. So we took an approach of, if this cost X today, in 10 years from now, we inflated that cost so as to ensure that we had the money to replace that. We were a tad bit conservative in the holistic approach. The reason for that is making the best use of the cash today doesn't necessarily mean saving 10 years worth of money for an equipment that we may purchase 10 years from now. So that conservative approach allowed us to open up some monies so as to support the rest of the fund. It also, what we did is the larger capital project items that are in the MER. We took an approach of, instead of saving for the larger items, and the one that comes to mind, and I know I mentioned this yesterday, is like a ladder truck. That's one of our biggest purchases. It's in the millions, and it is a very important piece of our infrastructure. And a ladder truck may or may not be replaced in the year that we have on paper. And that is a decision and conversation held at the leadership level in the fire department. And when that time comes, we have a conversation. If we can pivot and last a couple more years, then chief says, hey, I can wait another 2 years. I don't need it replaced now. If he needs it sooner, he'll come and say, hey, we had a fire EMS, an EMS vehicle go out, we need to replace it. And so we are constantly pivoting. This is a working document, but it gives us kind of this idea of, okay, well, how much money should we have in an account set aside for the fund budget? How much budget should we have so as to ensure we have enough money to sustain our operations, knowing that we're gonna have to pivot. But for our bigger purchases, we are going to fold those few items. They're not large items. It's not a big list, but we're going to fold those items into our bond loan schedule. The reason for that is we believe it is in the best interest of the city to put those items under a payment option when the time comes and make use of the cash we have now, so as to not lease or bond now for projects that we could pay cash today, if that makes sense. And Ben might be able to explain it a little better. It is a different approach.
It's what we do at home.
Well, not everyone, from what I understand. This philosophy that we are shifting to is the philosophy we currently operate in is a good philosophy. It's a philosophy that I have used in other cities. It's a philosophy also that Ben is used to. This new philosophy is also one that cities use. There's no right or wrong answer. It is what we came up with at your direction to try and do the best we can to not increase our mill levy, but sustain our operations. Again, we'll talk about it more. I know I kind of went into depth, but I just wanted to set that up, that there will be probably an in-depth discussion of that. The contractual budgets, we requested the leadership that they look at their contracts. We have contracts that are one-year contracts. We have contracts that are 10-year contracts, and they keep getting updated. They're not 10-year, but they're year-long contracts that continue to get updated. It is easy to say that's a contract, it's on the books, it has a riser, it's done. But similarly, like at home, when your AT&T bill comes back and it's all of a sudden 25% higher, you call and you say, hey, what's up? So we requested that staff do that. And we will continue to remind ourselves, just because it's this today doesn't mean it has to be this today. And I know that's a lot of work and it's a lot of capacity that we're requesting of our leadership, because it's a continuous look at our finances. But I think it's a good practice and reminder that we are stewards of this public money and we have to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck. We also asked if you can bundle services or combine across departments, like the example I gave earlier. Let's do that. Similarly, last year, an example of that was HVAC rather than just replacing HVAC at the NRC. We said, hey, we have an opportunity to replace HVAC in other buildings. Let's combine that, which is happening actually right today. If you're warm, there's only one chiller on working, so we're trying to crank it down. So that's happening right now. The next item that we are doing, which I'm sure that you already know, but I think it's important to remind you that we constantly pursue grants and cost-sharing opportunities. I'm sure the county heard that loud and clear last week. Our staff is, our finance department, leadership, our support, our division heads, they're constantly looking at ways to support our projects, especially those unique projects that are big dollar items. We are putting time and effort into seeing how those can be funded without necessarily using city coffers. That is not easy because it takes time. Writing a grant, it's free. It's not free money. There's reporting, and there's keeping track, and there's the nuances of obtaining federal, state, any type of grant money. So I thought it was important to share that because we continue to do that. And with the support of all of you, we have been able to do that for a couple of larger projects in the last year, and we are greatly appreciative because it helps us. It's just another tool in our toolbox. IT evaluate improvements to streamline and enhance service. I know Rebecca talked a little bit about that. Reduce operational budget lines using a 3-year trend model. I think it's fair to say we are not 100% done looking at trends line by line and assessing whether there needs to be an increase or a decrease. That is time consuming with finance being at capacity. Ben trying to set up our infrastructure for the finance department this year. Rebecca and I have been taking it upon ourselves to kind of look at those trends, and then we plan on going back to department heads and seeing if there is still opportunity. An example of this is the most obvious lines were easy conversations with department heads. You know, if we see a budget of X in 24 and budget of Y in 25 and a budget of Z in 26, the budget for this year is somewhat of a reflection of that budget. So if that is considerably higher or lower, it starts a conversation. That conversation and figuring out what that is and why the last 3 years has or has not been that requires digging. It requires, let me look into it, and it's a follow-up, and that's just one line. And do you know how many jails we have? 30,000-ish? I don't know, it's a lot. So what I'm saying is that has proven fruitful. When you, an example, we had a tree trimming request budget for an increase of about 20%, and it triggered a conversation. Why are we asking for more tree trimming? Well, because we're gonna trim more trees next year. There's a plan. Great. Why have we not been trimming that many trees? What's the change? Like, help walk us through. And Ed did an amazing job, Ed and his staff. And he explained to us, we learned that tree trimming and the budget for tree trimming, it comes from a map of the city. And depending on how many trees are in that map, in that section of town where tree trimming is parallel to the budget that's needed for that tree trimming. So you will have a $20,000 tree trimming budget, and then maybe a $35,000 tree trimming budget, and then the next year a $5,000 tree trimming budget. So that up and down is what I would call accurate budgeting for that, rather than 20, 20, 20, 20. And so I share that example because that's just one example of many examples that we're navigating through to ensure that it's not just, let's just add. So, any questions about that?
Well, I just, on the tree trimming thing, is I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so if there are less trees in this area versus, are we just going to stick to doing them by area because it's the year that area is done? Or
Sure.
are we...
Is that an opportunity?
That's a
to
great
change
question.
And do a level set that, you know, maybe we do 15 every year and we run it until we ain't got no money left.
Well, because then if you have
That's true. That is,
well, if you have fewer in this area
Yeah.
versus this, then what are you doing with the extra time in this area because you had less? I mean, I'm not saying there is lull time.
They're
I'm
really good
saying
question.
how do you redirect the time to something else versus, whereas if it's tree trimming and you know that there are fewer here and more here, and I don't,
We're using a contractor for that?
yeah, that's,
Right. So,
that's just,
Yeah, we do use a contractor for that, and we generally do it in the maintenance area that we're working in that year. We can certainly look at it another way if that's the desire to say, hey, in maintenance area, and I'm making this up, maintenance area A, you know, is the older part of town, there's a lot of mature trees there, but maintenance area B, which would be our next one, doesn't have any because it's like new development and trees aren't mature yet and they're not causing problems.
yeah.
We could look at another maintenance area and just try to like have a set budget if it's $100,000 and we just use that up to the best we could use it up. Making up numbers.
Yeah, I'm worried about those unintended consequences. I mean, right now, it's easy to communicate that this is the area that is being
Sure.
worked on this upcoming budget year. It's easy for Ed's crew to monitor the contractor. It's easy for communications to put the word out. It's easy for us to have something to reference and go back to rather than, well, I know they've got a budget this year that, you know, you get into that, well, why isn't my tree being done, you know, type
well,
of a
my question
situation.
to that would be, does the community know this? I doubt seriously if our community knows, oh, I'm in region such and such or year such and such. I think the community looks at the trees. They're not going to think in terms of, oh, well, those, I can't have this done, or this isn't going to get done until next year, or that. I mean, I see both sides, and the fact that it is more accurate budgeting if you know it's just by region, but at the same time, it's being able to, and I'm not sure if this is the right phrase, kill two birds with one stone. If you have a region that's much littler in things to do versus this one, I don't know. I'm throwing it out there because that thought came to mind.
Yeah.
I certainly don't know about, you know, what all the other things that have to be done and staff and all of that, but I guess I look at that as if you can get more done in less time, but I know they're structured by region too, so I know that's the balance in that.
Sure.
thank you, Kathy.
Certainly can look at different options. Yeah.
Okie dokie. We left on here from last year's conversation, credit card fees and pass-throughs. This will come to you, will we talk about more of this tomorrow? I don't know that so let's start off with where we landed last year. Last year, we had an intentional effort, Finance Department, Lisa. There was an intentional effort to negotiate and decrease credit card fees for the city. These are credit card fees that are paid by the city for us offering the service to run a Visa, a MasterCard, American Express, whatever. And that intentional effort worked. It did decrease the fees. I don't know, round number, I think at least 20%. 20%. We are currently assessing opportunities to give residents more options to pay their utility bill. With that comes a change in the platform. The question that we need answered sometime before we adopt a budget is, and we can bring back specific numbers, would commission like for us to pass on that credit card fee to the resident? Because we are now offering more services, more opportunities to pay. And this is very preliminary, but those opportunities now could include like Cash App or Venmo. We have automatic ACH. They can pay with a cash or a check. What am I missing? Those are the options pretty much. There are options to pay your utility bill without incurring a credit card fee. So that could be some savings in our utility departments. It could also be some savings across all departments that take credit card fees. So that will be an intentional conversation we have before tomorrow.
Do we have an approximate number of what the credit card fees would be?
Lisa, any 150 to 200,000 at this point ish? Close. We could, yeah.
What's the percentage on an individual transaction? Is it, I know that, aren't they?
1.9 or
It varies. It depends on the
I mean,
credit card.
I know in what we do, we have,
You have a flat fee?
no, it seems to range anywhere from 3 to 6%.
Yep.
That's why we have a lot of medical providers that won't take credit and debit card payments anymore because
'Cause of
they don't
that.
want to pass them on to the patients, but they don't want to pay them either.
Right, right.
They range as well, depending on the credit card that you use, whether or not it has points, and, you know, it varies.
Okay.
Well, it seems to me that we should certainly look at that as an option to pass through at least a portion of those fees to our customers. Because if it's 150 or 200,000, even if we saved half of that, you know, it would certainly help fill some holes somewhere.
Yep.
Provided we still have the no fee options.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Are we like going to call it something like a convenience fee, like if
Do you know what
this
it's
is
called
kind of
now,
a
Lisa?
convenience, so
Is it
here's the fee?
it's a credit card fee.
Yeah, sometimes if you may, I've noticed it going out to other places and shops and restaurants, you'll just notice they'll have a flat fee and they say, if you use credit card, is an extra 3.5% fee or whatever. So it's becoming more and more common for every place from national park gift shops to your local restaurant or something to have that fee attached. And instead of usually, it's a flat fee for everybody that would use it, not necessarily dependent on card, which is what we're actually getting charged, but we could come up with some numbers that would be kind of average. You know, you kind of try to capture the average there.
Wasn't there initially a dollar fee? Just a flat dollar? It seems like when you very first.
We still have the dollar fee. So we have a credit card fee, and then what I would call a convenience fee or a fee to use the online portal. That dollar fee is the charge in code. In Tyler Technologies charge for paying online. Then we have a credit card fee. The dollar is paid by residents currently. The credit card fee is paid by the city. And it tags on the dollar when you're paying your utility bill. Like it's just added there.
But if we look at other platforms, that dollar fee will, it'll go away. So
Thank you for.
as we're looking at this expanded option that would look at being able to take things like your Apple Pay, Venmo, ACH, you could pay more conveniently online, 3 in the morning when your check hits, kind of thing. It will also take off that dollar fee that's coming.
So Tyler is doing a fee plus as the card processor. So if we go with a third party, okay, very good.
And lastly, transfers out. Again, our personnel budgets and our transfers are our largest expenses in our budget. So similarly to how Donna had done in the past, is we assess transfers, and if the fund is doing well and it's in a good cash position, we took the opportunity to assess whether or not the transfer needed to happen or if the transfer could be reduced. So in an effort to sustain our cash balances, we didn't just say, oh, you're doing well, let's remove the transfer. Our hope is that if there was a sustained cash balance or a positive cash balance, not our hope, our action, our process was, not our hope, we hoped and prayed and actually did it. We looked at cash balances, and if it was in a good cash position, if it was above that kind of 15% cash reserve policy we have, if we took the next few years and said, what's coming down the pipeline, do you have enough cash? Then we assessed that transfer. It wasn't just, we're not doing transfers. There were some conversations about it, so. Okay. Any questions before Rebecca talks a little bit about the budget process?
Okay. So again, I'm just going to be keying this up for Ben, who's really our star today. Couple things he's going to go over for you that we haven't done as much traditionally. And one of that is going to be an overview of all funds and how they connect. And I'm just going to go over this, and I know you all know it, but just so we all remember, funds and departments sometimes can be the same, sometimes they're not the same. You know, a lot of our departments come out of one fund, general fund, but we have lots of funds, and we are going to show you guys all of those funds, and it might kind of remind you of your high school finance class again, but this is really, really important because in our city's budget, these funds interconnect every single day. Your utilities, your enterprise funds connect back with your general fund, and they have these kind of symbiotic relationships. And so our hope in presenting you with all of this, especially as Danielle already said, if we're going to be taking kind of a new approach that's based on lots of factors, including the price of debt, our current cash position, commissioner priorities, is also giving you that complete overview. So this, again, we're less focused on those departments individually, and we're looking at how those funds, where does the money come from? Where does the money go? How does it support things? And then a very holistic look towards savings. So instead of, again, just looking at department or individual, this bucket has this much and this bucket has this much, what does the city have? So a lot of analogies I've been saying is like a dual income household. This is like looking at everybody's income together and your stocks and your retirement, and you were given it the whole picture before we're making those big financial decisions. And a lot of things have changed since I've been with the city, and one of those is the price of debt. Rates have gone up substantially since, you know, the pandemic, when we were having very, very good interest rates. Debt wasn't the same price point it is today. Also, although we had a huge dip in our interest rates for the first part of the pandemic, then they went high, and we were getting really good returns on our use of money. So holding cash was a great moneymaker for us. Those rates have also gone down. So we have to shift our operations because we have all of these external pieces that have shifted in the finance markets, and they do affect us. Moving on, then, that talks about our cash funding philosophy. We do have fiscal policies. We have financial policies. And you've seen this before. Donna has given them to you quarterly. I pitched it a few times and gave it to her. We did not get you guys an end of year 2025 because of the transition. So we're kind of going to look back through some of these and wrap up 2025. So that's kind of on us. But if you remember, for those of you that have been on the bench for a while, we would look at the fund, not the department, but the fund, and compare that to what our policy is. And I'm just going to, real quick, 15% kind of our basis in our general fund. We keep 3 months operating for our utilities because they tend to be heavy users, and we want to protect against that. It's 5% in our other enterprise funds. So keeping that, what is our reserve policy in mind, then what can we do with cash? How can we utilize cash? Because right now we're not making more than inflation. So just, again, trying to be really, really clear about that. So that's where those MER transfers go. Your MER transfers go all over. You've got MER transfers from general fund to things like the golf course and the Meridian Center. You've got transfers from your utilities going into the MERS for general fund. You've got a lot of back and forth. And we're going to open that up a little bit today. Not at all. We're not going to make you do what Danielle and I have been doing with Ben for 4.5 weeks. But we're going to open it up a little bit so that hopefully it's a little clear. You can have your questions answered. You feel confident in the numbers that we're showing you, that they feel at least as transparent as we can put together in a few hours. And we're happy to answer any other questions that come with that. One thing that we had done, as you know, that the general fund had relied on direct utility transfers for a number of years, and this body has continually asked to back off on that. The utilities are still transferring through other ways to the general fund revenues. There is an in lieu of tax payment. We charge ourselves the same thing we charge any other franchise. remember, that's 3 funds: water, wastewater, and sanitation. We do salary splits. We pay things directly out of those funds. So there's a lot of pieces that go in. But one thing that you all had asked was that we would take off that extra about $1 million, $1.2 million, depending on the year, of those direct supports, just so that the utilities is a little bit more balanced. Your 3 main revenue sources are your ad valorem tax dollars, your sales tax, and then your utility. And that's really what your 3-legged stool, plus a bunch of other funds that Ben will go over. That's kind of your 3-legged stool of income coming in that then gets expended. So any big overarching questions on that before we get into a lot of numbers? All right.
I'm going to touch on external challenges really quick.
Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot there's another slide. My bad.
I know that I don't have to go into detail, but just a reminder before we start talking about revenues and expenses. So it's on the forefront of your minds, the challenges that we are going through that may or may not be in our control. The first one is federal and state mandates, items that, and I'd group the legislature this year, the upcoming legislature changes related to taxes. Let's talk about the mandates. There are things that have happened in the last few years, from water mandates, PFAS, to economic development tracking from community development last year. These are things that are out of our control. These are federal and state mandates that say, here you go, now you have to do, and that requires people and capacity. And so we manage through that. The legislative changes, the tax lid, I call it the tax lid, my truth in taxation. Since I graduated college, it's shifted 4 times. So we went from the last 10 to 15 years to truth in taxation, to tax lid, to R&R, and it's shifting again. And with that shift will come, it'll be a little more difficult to levy a tax for the needs of a community. That, I'm not saying that's good, I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying there will be additional steps. And I just want you to be aware that those changes are coming. Debt obligations of the city for aging infrastructure. Just like anything else, everything is aging. Everything needs replacement, and we are seeing the effects hot and heavy right now in some of our buildings. I don't think we talk enough about building maintenance and the infrastructure, the dollars needed to sustain and operate our buildings. And we own a lot of buildings. Maybe we do a work session one day to talk about all that. But and these buildings aren't necessarily ones that city staff operate in. There are buildings we own, we operate, but we're not actually working out of them. It is a partnership, an agreement, we let an organization be in it for $1, whatever it may be. So balancing the services residents expect with the tax and fee levels they are willing to support. That is something that every city in the United States tackles, because as a resident and as a community member, I expect a level of service based on my upbringing, based on where I live, based on my expectation of the future, based on what I make, based on many factors. Balancing that with the monies we need to provide those services has proven difficult, and that is the gist of this entire conversation. Competition with neighboring communities. This is a conversation at the state level that a lot of leadership and managers are having, not necessarily from kind of this lens, but more of a positive lens at how can we strengthen our relationships so as not to compete with each other? How can we strengthen the relationship so we're working together and not, taking from other cities, or putting a city who is working on a project or a program or a development prospect and put them in a pickle because the city down the street offers something better or something different. And so it's really strengthening the relationship across leadership across Kansas so that we're communicating with each other and are similarly or within arm's reach offering some of the same things, and being ingenious about it. You know, if I can't provide the 200 acres that you're looking for, I can say, we might not have it, but let me show you, let me tell you about the city down the street. Costs associated with software, hardware, and data security. It's one of the biggest rises in our contractual costs that we're seeing. It's here and it's here to stay. So maintenance costs and staff. This one is important just to kind of park in the back of your minds. We are, with declining turnover rates, from our compensation study, our compensation analyst or compensation consultant made us aware of how blessed we are to have a tenured staff here. We have people who have been here plus 10 years, many people who have been here plus 20 years who have been loyal to this organization, but 15% of them could retire. I'm not sure what the percentage after that, but I would say something similar to that 15% are eligible to retire within the next 5 years. And so that's a third of our staff. And so what that means is transition, which means capacity, which means change. So just these are things that just maybe park in the back of your mind as we're talking about numbers. Okay, now I'm going to kick it off to Ben.
First of all, I've been able to kind of do a deep dive, and I do this with all my clients that I work with their budgets on. Just do a deep dive into the budget and where your cash position lies, what your trends have looked like. And the city of Newton is a joy to work on. One is you've got the policies and the practices in place and you use them. MERS is a perfect example, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But you've also got a great communication between the governing body and staff. And just, that's impressive. But what I'd like to do is kind of step back a little bit on the first slide. Anytime we deal with a budget, we're talking about really two dimensions. The kind of the what and the where. When I say what, we've really got two buckets that we live in. They're governmental buckets that we talk about probably 90% of the time. And then there's also the business bucket. And the businesses are businesses you could just lift out of the financial statements and sell. I'm not saying you will, but they're basic businesses. They'd run on their own. They'd stand on their own with no tax, no subsidies, nothing like that. And you've got those sitting over there. So you've got two different dimensions there by itself. When you look at the budget, you've got operating and then capital. A lot of times your budget from year to year may fluctuate just based on the capital. And I know your history has been that way. You've got capital that's boiled into your budget. But of all the funds, the general fund is by far the largest. The general fund is a catch-all for anything else that doesn't have a fund. It's where we spend probably 80% of our time. The other 20% is spent over in utilities. It's a lot easier because they're isolated into what can the fee afford, and then what are we doing? So it's a conversation that's a lot easier to have. With the general fund, you're competing. There's a whole bunch of departments competing across the board with these funds. So those are kind of the two different dimensions, the what and the how. The governmental funds, proprietary is what they call it, operating in the capital. We can go to the next slide. So what is in this budget? The overall budget itself, $59.2 million in revenues, $62.5 million in expenses. In the next slide, we have a comparison, a little bit different comparison, but the net there is a net decrease. Now, or net deficit. Now, why would we have a deficit? Anytime you've got a cash balance that you could spend down and use cash instead of debt, you want to do that. And not to the detriment of your cash balances, but to the fact that you've got that cash sitting there. And that's what this is. That's what this budget's doing. So we're spending down some cash balances. Overall funds, there's 27 funds involved in that. Like I said, the biggest one is the general fund we spend most of our time in. Go ahead. Yeah, you've got it. So if I had to compare it to last year's budget, we're around 2% difference. So from 2026's budget, I said last year, this year's budget versus 27, what's been proposed is around 2% less than inflation difference between 26 and then 27. So when Daniela's talking about a flat budget, this really is a flat budget coming in less than inflation. And that involves staff increases, the salary increases, the pay increases is built into that. When we look at revenues, you can see there's a table here that shows the budget preliminary, just kind of the comparison and change. And then what that net looks like as well from last year to this year. When we look at trends, so you've got a $62.5 million budget, but where's it been in the past? The kind of gold colored line here is really your budget for expenses, and it's pretty flat. I mean, with an exception of 2025, and that was due to capital, your budget's coming in pretty flat. So it's being managed pretty well if that's the goal. Revenues are about the same thing. So it's coming in a little bit pretty flat as well. This one I'd like to talk a little bit more about. This is a listing of the major funds and how do they interconnect. Obviously, the general fund is most of your operations. That's not in an enterprise fund. The transfers for MERS, that process of basically depreciating your vehicles and putting it in another fund is rare to have a city do that. It's a best practice, and if you have the opportunity, that's exactly where you need to be, because then you'll have the cash set aside when something breaks or it just needs to be simply replaced. That money is swept over, obviously, into a different fund itself. General fund's $29 million. You can see in that graph just how large it is compared to anything else that you've got. Wastewater, we've got a little bit of a decrease there. Waterworks, same way. We've got sizable cash balances in those. The bond and interest is the same way. We've got sizable cash balance. You'll see this in the statements when we are able to give them to you tomorrow. Solid waste is the same way. Golf course has got some of it a surplus that's being budgeted. And then it keeps going down. But each one of these funds is important to the overall budget. And like I said, there's 27 funds. These are the largest ones that we're working on. When we look at the next slide, it shows, I want to be able to show the cash balances. This is kind of what it looks like a spider web. On the left-hand side, the top line is the general fund. It goes out to 26, 27. 27, actually, that dot needs to be down at around 8 million based on where the fund is ending. Yeah, but the point is, you've had cash the whole time. So if you've got something you're saving up for, obviously your budget can go up. And it doesn't mean that you don't have money. It just means you've stored the cash to be able to apply toward those priorities. The MERS is the next one, just the bottom one on that left-hand side. You can see the cash balances there have increased over time. Obviously, you've got a lot of equipment in that list, and a lot of that equipment is appreciating or depreciating pretty quickly. The cost of those, the replacement cost of those vehicles, the rolling stock is going up. When Public Works asks for a dump truck, it's not the dump truck that was 2020. It's a lot higher. Some of the fastest appreciating equipment that you buy anymore is fire apparatus. When I got started, it was an expensive piece of equipment around 500,000. Now it's doubled, obviously, 20 or 30 years later. But it's gone up it's not unheard of to have a $1.2 million piece of equipment. And that's just one piece of equipment. But having that cash built up is important. On the right-hand side, you can see the enterprise funds, solid waste, wastewater, and waterworks. Again, cash balances are important, and in our industry, cash is king. Anytime you've got the cash that is saved, just like your home savings account, if you've got a fairly healthy savings account, you can withstand any kind of emergency that comes up, and you don't have to borrow for it. My daughter's brakes went out in her car, and she had more savings at the time than I did. But she was able to actually pay for that because she had the savings sitting in there, and she didn't have to borrow for it. But it's important to know that the cash balances are healthy, and that's how we balance this budget. Within Kansas, cash resources plus revenues equals your budget. So a balanced budget it includes both revenues and your cash balance. Go ahead.
Ben, if I may, that wasn't, using cash plus revenue was an intentional effort as part of with your direction from our finance department to allow us to sustain that growth through the coming years. So if you see a higher expense number than a revenue number, it is dipping into our cash. That is intentional. Please don't be alarmed by seeing a negative number. That means if that number is $1 million in the negative, that means we're using $1 million of cash. We will tie that all together in the coming day. So,
yeah, absolutely. Kind of want to break this down now into the revenues and the expenses. Some of this you may already know. With your largest operating funds being the general fund and the enterprise funds, including the bond and interest fund. What I wanted to do is really break down revenues. The revenue trend just at the fund level, the total fund level, you can see kind of where that's headed. It's fairly flat if you look at the general fund at the very top. And on the revenues, on wastewater, waterworks, they both have a slightly declining over the years. On the revenue, the stability of solid waste, the stability of the GEO bond interest fund and the golf courses, for golf course for that matter, is kind of surprising because usually they're running in a deficit, but not your golf course, thank gosh. Yeah. So this looks really good. Your revenues are looking really good. When you go ahead with expenses. Well, this is by category.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what this shows is really your overall revenues. What are your top revenues and how are they looking? So if you look at taxes, and that's property tax and sales tax together, citywide, that's all funds, no matter how it's being used, it's all together. So your taxes are increasing, obviously, and when I say taxes increases, that's a lot of that sales tax increasing, right? The consumption is increasing. Sales and use tax is a very important part of anybody's budget, but that's on an incline. It's not a rapid incline. It's steady as it's going up. You can see in 2027, it's slightly ahead of 2026. The staff keeps a conservative point of view when you budget revenues. The last thing you want to do is get too aggressive with your forecast and have to pull back. You kind of want to always have room there. So the budget includes that conservative nature. Utility revenue, you can see that's fairly flat on that blue line. Transfers in, it was higher in 2023 and 2026, but it's gone down a little bit in 2027.
And Ben, could you remind all of us what is all in the transfers in line?
Yeah, that's true. Transfers in includes any transfers basically from another fund. So that could be transfers in from capital, that could be transfers in from, your pilot that's paid for or transfers in. So any kind of transfer in from another fund. So those Those are inside the city. Those aren't external resources coming in. That's just a reshuffle of how you use revenues that have already arrived. And that's a policy decision too, on how that's set up. Go ahead. On the expense side, we're doing the same thing. The overall expenses, being a service-driven industry, personnel is your number one expense, obviously. Maintaining and taking care of those people, both in succession plan and replacing positions, even adding positions are going to be important. 47, 50%, and that's typical. 50% of the overall budget is coming from that personnel number. Of the cost increases, salaries aren't the fastest increasing. Obviously, health insurance has been a little nutty here lately. It can come up to a double-digit increase in cases. Your contractual services obviously is your next one down. So the people that do the service, actually equipping them with the equipment that they need to do that service and the contracts they need to do that service obviously make up your entire budget. But you can kind of keep going down through there and see what the overall levels look like. On the green is again, transfers out in this case. A lot of these transfers out are your MERS that move over. You can see 25 had a fairly large transfer out. That can also be money coming out of the general fund. If you got a surplus or if you got a fairly healthy cash balance, then you can move that money over into capital before the end of the year to cash fund capital as well. The next one is really what's the accountants call net position. So what position do we have in each one of the funds? If I was to compare this to a for-profit, we're talking about net income, net loss. But unlike the commercial sector, a net loss can be sustained in a government because you've got the cash to spend. That's just a different nuance than when you see from a commercial entity versus government. And for the most part, you've got cash surpluses, and there's a lot of zeros in there. I should have changed that. You guys brought that up, and I didn't do it. You can see what Daniela was talking about when we're intentionally spending down some of the cash balances. And tomorrow, I'll walk through the statements. You get the actual numbers that show what the budget is, what the beginning cash is, and what it looks like. So if you see the general fund at a $2 million deficit, we'll show you what that cash ends up being or forecasted in 2027. So you'll see that as well. And I'll walk through that with you to kind of guide you through that spreadsheet.
And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think it's important to say that the budget that we're presenting you, the revenue and expense budget that we're going through, that difference you're seeing does not include the increase in assessed valuation. This is just revenue staying, 27 revenue staying, property tax revenue staying the same.
Yep. Any
additional revenue projection, permit fees, sales tax, that is the revenue you're seeing. And I don't know if that's important for you to know now. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll talk more about mill levy impact, assessed valuation. All of that is to tomorrow conversation. Today's just kind of laying the groundwork.
Yeah. The next one, go ahead and flip it. So what I've also provided in here, I'm not going to go through these in detail, just for your reading whenever you can't sleep at night. What this does is kind of give you in 2 slides just an overall picture of the 27 funds and how they look from 2023 to 2027, some of the trends. And these are all, they show revenues and expenses. The top one, the one right here is revenues, the next slide's expenses. So you can kind of see where your budget's headed or what that trend looks like. And for the most part, it's pretty steady. Typically, we get brought into a crisis situation at a city, and you guys are exactly opposite of that crisis situation. It's been a joy to work on, because this is the way the city should be run. The way you guys are set up, your policy and your practices, this is an example of how it should be done. And the policy you guys have set is obviously paying off. A lot of what I want to talk about is going to be tomorrow when we show you the departments and the funds. And then you may have questions when we hit that.
I know we don't have slides for it, but are you able to speak a little bit to where we ended in 25?
Oh, yeah, that was in my list. That was in my list. Yeah, trying to think. 2025, we ended up with a surplus, $729,000 surplus in the general fund. So it was a stable year. I forget what your budget was for 2025, but your revenues came in higher than what was expected, and obviously department spent less than what was budgeted. So overall, it looks really well. When we get the book tomorrow, we'll have 23, 24, and 25 in there to compare against 26 and 27. I'll break it down by category too, where you just see the taxes, intergovernmental revenues, which is just literally other cities, other counties, the state transferring revenues. We'll show each one of those categories, and you can see and you can compare to each one of those levels, those categories, in all those funds. Utilities, you'll be able to see the history of back to 2023, what the history of, say, water or sewer funds look like, what the solid waste looks like. Each one of those funds will be in there, so you can kind of see what the differences are. You'll be able to see what personnel, how much that makes up of each one of the categories and the funds for that matter. Not all funds have personnel, have people in them. Some of them are capital and purely capital. But yeah, that book it'll show a lot. And we'll go through it in more detail tomorrow and go through. But 25 looked good. It really did look good.
I'm going to note a couple things on these slides because they are actually initiatives that have changed. So if you take a look on your revenue and your expenses, there's 2 new funds on here. And one of them is Fund 490, which is a rail fund. You may have heard us speaking over the past couple of years that we were going to have a rail utility. We're expecting that to go online next year. So we needed to create a fund for that rail utility. We put a lot of work in. You're going to see the bond for some of the work that has been done, but we're adding an entire utility to the city budget. So again, something we've talked about. We talked about how it was funded with a portion of a grant, how it works with our economic development and our industrial park. And we've had all the conversations about it as a project, and now it's coming onto your budget. So that's why you see a bunch of zeros, and then in 27, we finally have some revenues and expenses in there. Those are probably going to be the most estimated expenses in most of your fund budgets because it's brand new. We have a great consultant who, with PEC, that has worked with us on this project all the way through from her beginnings here at the city. And she helped us extensively in preparing those numbers. But while we are a rail town, this is probably the first time the city has started a rail utility. So we're putting in our best estimated expertise guess, but it will probably see some fluctuation in the 27 when we close out. The next one in there was direction that you may have remembered around the November, December time, and that is your economic development 275. We have a portion of one of the shared county sales taxes that is designated for economic development / infrastructure. And when we had Janetta here as the finance director, we had a lot of questions about what went in and out of that fund, and we can go over that. I've got a plan to go over tomorrow, but we can always go over that at other times as well. One of the struggles was the slash. What's economic development? What's infrastructure? A lot of times in these big projects, it gets really fuzzy really fast. And we do pay bonds out of those funds. So we have sales tax coming in that, as Ben mentioned, can be a little volatile. We had land sales going in, and it was kind of squishy. for lack of a better term. But we don't like our finances squishy. So we had separated it on paper, on a spreadsheet. We sat with you all, we worked through it, we went through line by line and divided it. And then we were given the direction of, could you just actually split them? Because staff time pulling apart every single expense started to be a lot. And again, we're trying to continue to be able to grow. We're trying to be able to give you good options of how do you invest these tax dollars to continue to grow, to continue to support those economic development initiatives, to continue to support infrastructure, and just keeping it, for lack of a better way, a clean list. So again, that's a fund that you'll see a bunch of zeros, and you'll see some stuff popping in 27. Things may shift in there as we continue to move forward, as we continue to program those budgets. And again, we estimate, as Ben mentioned, very conservatively. Anybody that plays in finance, especially here at the city, is very, very risk adverse. So if we tend to underestimate our revenues, it's just to help with that risk aversion. But we're expecting that to kind of become a very useful tool so that we can, again, give you one picture that has all of those needed elements in it. So those are probably the two things to point out. But like I'd said previously, these are the funds. These are all of those individual buckets, so to speak. Yeah. But like Ben said, they don't necessarily all have staff in them. They don't do the same things. They don't function the same way, and they're not departments. Even though sometimes, on occasion, they can be tied to a department, they're not necessarily a department. And we'll go through salary splits a little later, but another thing to remember as we go through this is that all of these funds, whether or not salaries are split out, your leadership team is probably touching all of these funds. Yep. All the time. Some of them can take more or less staff time depending on the amount of work and the growth potential. So that's just a quick overview.
I get a couple other things.
Yes.
So we've kind of been talking about conservative revenue estimates. That's good when we set the budget, only because we got to set the budget months ahead of the year ending, obviously. We're using April revenues as a go-by for forecast. Having a conservative budget is good. Being able to respond to a revenue that are coming in higher than what we expected is even more important. So as you see revenues coming in, having leadership know what that looks like and can actually pull options out and say, well, here's what we've got because revenues are coming in higher. Here's what we've got that can be taken to the city manager's office to be able to apply and have that throughout the year. That's what makes that budget a living document. So that was point number one. Point number two, I want to kind of stand up on the state legislature. This isn't political at all. It's just more practical. Obviously, the two big statewide and region-wide, really, pushes are for assessed value or appraised value not to go up very fast, and that's understandable. Levies are a big part of that. Changing those levies, whether that's at the state legislature or that's your job. My opinion is your job, not the state legislators, to determine what your citizens would need or want to have. That's not at the state legislature. But some of the stuff that they put in this last year was kind of alarming. One of the ideas they had and almost made it through was to hold you accountable for a levy from before when bonds were issued. So in other words, if your debt service levy had to go up a little bit, you were held to a certain level and it couldn't go up anymore. Those kind of things got put in they were just impractical. I don't think they're going to stay away from that again this next year, the next legislation. And that's going to impact a lot of our clients that we're working with them, both on the MA, municipal advisor side, and budget side for that matter too. So just keeping that in mind as we go through the budget process is important.
maybe a good time to take a quick 15-minute break?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
don't want to rush.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Alrighty. Next on the agenda for today is review of the city CIP. CIP stands for Capital Improvement Plan or Program, depending what world you come from. Our city CIP has been one that we've had for many, many years. I'm not quite sure when the last time this was discussed in a work session or a meeting. It's been some years. We thought it'd be a good opportunity to go through it with the infrastructure and development changes that have been happening. Those trigger a big portion of this plan. And so staff has done a great job, and they continue to do a great job of updating this plan to reflect those changes, because this plan can affect mill levy, because dollars to fund this plan come from operating, they come from bonded indebtedness, which is mill levy, they come from grants, they come from partners, they come from petitions. So Rebecca and Ed spearheaded the updating of this plan. So I'm going to let Rebecca talk about it. All the department heads contributed to this plan. So this is a combined effort. That being said, this is an operating document. This is a work in progress document. It gives us a good picture of where we're heading. But please know, as things change, as opportunities come to you, when that direction or the decision is made, there is a change in this document. So this is like a balance sheet, if you will. It's a snapshot of where we are today. We will have conversations today about requesting direction of what should be included, maybe what shouldn't be included from your point of view, because there's a lot of projects coming down the pipeline, and when there's opportunity to do a project, whether or not that project falls in line with our mission and our strategic plan comes from you. So we're kind of taking this grassroots approach of, now we're just going to put the projects in front of you and talk through them. So,
Yeah.
Rebecca.
And I'm going to go over just a little bit more about what a CIP is and what we put in front of you. So again, it's this capital improvement planning document. And I guess the first thing is, why would we have one? Well, we have one because we have to have some sort of record. We need to have something that is sustainable. We don't want to just put everything between people's ears. So we have to put it down in some sort of a project that can be discussed. It can be looked at. It can be ranked. We can continually check our progress and identify that it is meeting your direction and the priorities in the strategic plan. Also, and important to the conversation at hand of why we do discuss this at budget time, is where did these funds come from, right? When we talk a little bit more tomorrow, you're going to see that in some of our tighter budget years, the bond and interest mill levy has at times weighed on our overall operations. And that depends on when things are coming. So for staff, us being able to plan and put things in order and kind of be able to spread that love, if you will, and this is helpful. It's helpful for us to get it on. What you have is a 5-year outlook starting with this year, 2026. One thing that's not on this sheet that we gave you today, but we do have, but you're looking at it separately, is the airport. If you remember, the airport's budget is created with both the city and the county, so you did review a draft of that, and that's going through kind of a long sidecar process, if you will. So what you have right now is just the 5 years. Just so you know, staff has a much longer internal list that we use as a working document. We have things on there that have been wish list items. If you put it down, stick it on there. But this is the 5-year outlook. So there's probably a lot more in future to come years. So if you say something you don't see it on here, we might have just not presented you with the full working scribbles, so to speak. So I'll just go ahead and get us started. The first item that you'll see here is facilities. When we talked about consolidating internal services and creating a good flow of work, this is where this comes into play. looking at all of those buildings we have. So we do this in our MERS with the building maintenance, and we do it with our CIP. If you're looking for your CIP in your notebook, it's the 2 blue pages. It might be towards the back. Should be there. If you don't have a copy of these 2 large pages, please let us know. We have extras.
Okay.
Okay.
Should be 2.
It's 2 pages
Behind the mirror.
behind them.
After the MER. That's the MER. So change, no, open. Use that one.
Yep.
Okay, so you're done with these pages. I'm still on.
Pretty much. I've got a couple that I'm going to put on the screen to help me remember my talking points, but
Okay.
is she missing? Okay.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Thank you. It's stuck.
All right. Everybody have a copy? Okay. Did not put this on the PowerPoint, but we do have extra copies if anybody needs them because it's a lot of spreadsheet to throw on a slide. Not very legible. Okay, so at the beginning is that facilities, and you'll notice that we're putting things on there. Again, this is just looking at the next 5 years. You'll see the HVAC replacement that we talked about happening currently as we're sitting here. The Meridian Center's air wall improvements, we've had a conversation about those. We've still been working with contractors to get bids. There has been a suggestion for golf course clubhouse improvements that would include everything that's inside the building, kind of bundled that as one project. Funding there would be to be determined, but you'll see the other ones come from certain funds you'll see in there. Public safety facility study, we reviewed that in our projects occurring. This would be the payment of it. We'd probably start with an RFP this year, so we put payment in next year. Windows for the service shop. Put in there a fire station because we're expecting that some building will come out. Will it be this building? We can't say exactly, but it's not unlikely if we're going to have the study. So
I might add a little to that. You see that $8.5 million, that's a big number. For now, if it's fair to say, and I'd ask Chief Rebecca to weigh in, it's a placeholder. We don't have $8.5 million in a fund waiting to pay for this building. This will be a concerted effort, lots of conversations of how we pay for a building if a new building or a reorganization of buildings happens for the fire EMS department and the police department, depending on where that lands. So this is just put this on your radar as this is coming. There may be an opportunity I love opportunity. A challenge, an opportunity to come up with monies to adequately house our staff that provide these services. So.
yeah, great clarification. Again, that's kind of what we're sitting here. This is the things in the next 5 years. Where do you place them? Where do you think that they might come out? And again, that was just, if you're going to do the public safety study, you probably are going to have a building. You'll notice that there's a blank in Expand Service Center. There was a piece on your new projects about the study, which we did put in there. So would that, again, if we do the study, would there need to be an increase in the building? Kept the placeholder on there, wouldn't know when the year might land. And then we've put in some money for City Hall security upgrades. We've been working on that as a project, but again, putting aside some more funding to make sure that staff, visitors, residents, and you all have a safe building that can be properly utilized in the case of any sort of emergency situation.
This one I might ask Chief to talk a little bit about between Ed and our public safety leadership. We've started meeting to discuss how to start City Hall is structured, and it doesn't lend itself to having an easy way to secure this building. We have multiple entrances. We don't have a necessarily landing place. You come in and you got to go up or down. And so I might, just so you are aware of kind of what we're thinking and what we're looking at, because that may change the way you have access to this building, I might ask Craig if he could speak a little bit about what we've done and kind of where we're heading, and then maybe Ed to talk about the implementations we have made.
City Hall is not really conducive for safety, whether it be visitors coming through, staff, anybody else that's come through. It's kind of in my view, it's a split floor plan like in a house. You'll go up and down. There's no place to go, and it's all centered in the center part of the building. So we need to come up with a different plan to keep everybody safe. whatever that's going to be. So it's going to be a lot of conversations. There's a lot of challenges ahead of us, but it's all for the betterment of the facility without having to build a whole new complex. So it's kind of the thought process.
And we've implemented some changes that are small dollar changes that have made a big difference. And I'll let Ed talk a little bit about the things we have done. And
Yeah, so we internally, we did kind of a site audit with chief and both the chiefs, and determined some areas that we would like to look at to make the building more safe. And then I contacted a company that we use for our security and our cameras throughout the building, and they also do like door access, things of that nature. So as a very kind of beginning piece, we're starting to look at doors, which ones would have secure access. We installed a second door on second floor between kind of the hallway and HR, because on court day, we get a lot of people coming in and out, and they're just walking into HR, walking into finance, because they're not sure where they're supposed to go. And so we've kind of blocked that off. It needs to be safe. We don't want people coming in when they're upset because they have to, go to court, and then they can't find where they need to go. And so that kind of forces them to go to that little waiting room area and just wait to be called. What else? Lighting. We took a look at the lighting. We found that we had some bulbs that were out around the parking lot. And so when folks were leaving at night, it was a little questionable. So we've gotten those repaired, and we're just trying to do a better job of keeping up on just overall security and just looking at things. You're all aware of the world that we live in today, and this is one of those buildings that people maybe don't have a good feeling for. And so we just want to protect everyone and make sure that it doesn't just have free roaming access. So.
All right, I'm gonna, you might need to keep that mic, Ed. Since we did this together. The next piece, which if you have specific questions, I will defer to Ed, is the PBC. PBC, as you know, that's a public building commission that the city of Newton kind of helps staff. And the reason we put these items on here, even though they sit in their own budget, is because we do contribute via the mill levy to the PBC. And so this is just kind of putting these things in front of you, getting them. You can kind of see that these facilities are, in a way, ours because we own them through the PBC along with our other partners. So this is just to put them in front of you to see what's coming up. And Ed has worked very closely with the PBC as he serves as part of their staff, the city's representation of staff, and working with Brian Baskew extensively to make sure that everything's on here. And
remind us, Rebecca, is it 1 mil is assigned to the PBC every year?
I believe that's correct.
Just to kind of keep that in the back of your heads, 1 mil is put into this PBC with the school district and the
NRC.
NRC.
And that funds these projects.
Right. So again, this is just more for your reference, but if you have specific questions, like I said, Ed worked very extensively with Brian on creating this, so I would defer to him. The next things also fit under our trustee public works director's auspices. We're going to start with infrastructure. This is where we've put, and this is a staff decision on where to group projects, but we put streets, intersections, bridge, bike paths, sidewalks, and the railroad, because we haven't quite spun off that railroad utility yet, into this next section. This is those heavy hitter projects. These are the ones that we generally tend to bond because there's lots of commas involved. You'll notice 3 of them this year: the Spencer project, East Hillside, and that rail extension. 2 of those are expected to be bonded through that Economic Development Infrastructure Sales Tax Fund. The other one, the bond payment would probably come out of our regular bond and interest fund. And then in 27, you're going to see a lot more of those roadway type projects that you're used to, like your C-Clip, that Plum Street Bridge, and and some of those other pieces that you've been hearing a little bit about that we need to continue to work on. And then again, we estimate more in 2028. These are also development driven. So one of the things to keep in mind is that while we can kind of estimate on the resources that we have today, and our city engineer, Chris Tradella, worked very hard in kind of trying to estimate what we need now with Ed. If something happens, if we build something, these projects shift. The needs shift, the priority may shift. So
This is our crystal ball of placeholders of where things might land.
right. And in some of these, we've kind of truncated this sheet a little bit, but in a lot of these, we always do look for also when do grant or opportunities come. So some of these, might be tied to an SS4A project, or if we see an economic development fund grant, or if we see some other sort of KDOT funding. So when those funding opportunities come and we have it on the list, we'll match those up, even if they're a little further down, because again, they serve as placeholders until we're really in the year for them. So. And that will lead us down to water, which is very similar. You can see the projects that we're working on right now, but you'll see a bunch in red. And all of that red, and Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, those projects in red got added as we did the utility master plan.
That's correct.
So that's why in the completion year, there's not numbers. There's some estimated numbers later on in the document. They're kind of pegged to be on the revolving loan fund, so that would be a loan, but it's a different type of loan funding than just a regular GO bond. And these are all development driven. That's
Correct.
accurate. So these might move. The reason there's not dates attached is because these are different types of infrastructure that we would need dependent on growth, depending on where the growth goes. So that's why they're numbered. They've got, 9 different major ones. And those are areas that are in that plan. So if area 1 gets developed, this is what's going to be needed. If area 2, et cetera, et cetera. So these are, again, having us prepared and ready for whatever comes our way.
Rebecca, do you know the answer to this question? In these growth areas, as related to the comp plan, is there a recommendation as growth happens, if there's a starting point or a priority of where growth should happen that would give commissioners an idea of where maybe we should aligning our investments today rather than wherever growth happens?
Sure. Yeah, speaking about that just a little bit, what those recommendations that you've already seen the draft recommendations for growth in the comprehensive plan at, when we had the work session at the police training building. The comprehensive plan is going to recommend that growth begins in already established areas, parts of the city that we already have annexed, parts of the city that we already have infrastructure, and then when we do need to go outside of existing infrastructure, that it's a concerted plan to tie in a bunch of projects, or to not skip, do things adjacent to each other. It will recommend that there are just the continued costs of expanding the infrastructure, that there's a little bit of a plan to pay for it, an ROI look at, just to make sure that growth is in a sustainable way, that it's not growing faster than we can provide services to or fund the service providing to get to those areas. Does that?
Yes. And then one more question to that.
Sure.
How does this topic continues to come up as we look at developing and growing the Main Street corridor, the downtown corridor? How does the utility plan and the comp plan play into investments in the downtown area? Are they a priority? Is it up in the air? Is it a staged approach?
Yes to all. There will be recommendations for different types of growth, dependent on different things. They're going to have a phased approach for most projects, like in the near future, 0 to 2 years, and then 2 to 5 years, and then 5 years and longer, or ongoing projects. Building community relationships is always an ongoing project. But we do have some of those things that have already been kind of penciled in, if you will, in our items. Trying trying to think now, but they're a little bit further out. So while the engineers, not on this list I think that you have in front of you, but we do have some of those pieces. The goal of staff was to wait until the comprehensive plan was actually adopted before we rolled in those in. Actually, I can skip ahead in my slides here.
I might add one more too.
Yeah.
The water and sewer master plan predominantly is for future growth, but we are also looking at what regulations are potentially going to change, especially on the water and wastewater side. So as we see things with lead and copper or PFAS or those items, we're trying to be proactive and say, oh, we've got to put in a different filter for this, or we have to add a different basin for that. Just basing it on a lot of what we're hearing at the federal and the state level on potential changes to the regulations that may occur. So you'll see some of those things in there, like a sodium hydroxide tank or a new digester or something like that. So those are just in there because we're not only looking at growth, but we're also looking at regulations that could impact.
And actually, yes, to your point of growth of downtown, it is in here, just again, not labeled. New water, downtown corridor water upgrades are in the water. So the first one in red. And there should be a paired one here in wastewater downtown corridor sewer upgrades. Again, they're on there, but they're growth dependent. So the plan would be, and I kind of brought up my other slide for some notes. Why we're going through this today, this is a point in time snapshot, like Daniela said. So these are things that are on probably all of the leadership team mind that we didn't include. One of them, new growth and development. We can look through our crystal ball and kind of guess. We've heard, you get an ask, you get a request, but it's not settled yet. So we don't add it to the plan. Not quite yet. Implementation of the comprehensive plan. It would be premature for us to take the recommendations before they were adopted. So with that coming in the next few months, that will get rolled in by the time you see this the next time. Maintaining existing buildings. I started with the facilities portion, but like Daniela said, we own a lot of buildings. And examples are things you don't always think about, like the Working Teen, Meridian Center, the NRC, and maintaining these buildings, which even the youngest of these are starting to get a little old. And some of them, we have them because they're old. Those are all things that will probably continue to have needs. And those needs, as they come up, as our building maintenance staff, as our engineers, as whomever needs to be part of the conversation evaluates those buildings and looks at those needs, they will come back as projects. And then with the, like I said earlier, in the facility, it's the implementation of those public works and public safety plans. And putting in some numbers maybe as a holding spot, or putting in a title. But there's probably going to be a list of things, we would guess, that would come back as a plan implementation. So maybe there's some big things in the millions of dollars, maybe there's some small things in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we do know that they're going to have implementations with them. So all the things that we kind of think about, but aren't with us right here today. Usually, in my experience, you review the CIP at least once a year, but in a state of growth like us, we could easily review it twice a year with you all in a more in a quick setting, so we don't go through it line by line, but that you get it and you have time to comment.
So and I might have missed it, but down there underwater, those first 5 lines in black, so you do have how they might be funded, but did you intentionally leave those off in what year? Do you not have a year? Like a Northeast Transmission Line, 12-inch water line, Spencer, new water line infrastructure, athletic park.
Those were from our previous master plan. A lot of that was.
Okay.
And so depending on growth, and then,
Okay.
and so we haven't moved in that direction yet, and, but we wanted to keep a placeholder
Okay.
like we did for the new water master plan.
All right.
Is it fair to say, Ed, and Rebecca, depending on the recommendations of the comp plan, that by the end of the year, this plan will have a reflection of that growth change, will then in turn have a better reflection of where utility improvements will be? We're
Yeah,
kind of in I think we're in a weird spot right now. We needed to update it, but we still have kind of the bigger pieces that need to be folded in.
I think they can be correlated. again, it's going to be driven by the development. So I'll just use the airport, for example. You know, there's been some talk about development at the airport. And in order to do that correctly, we need to put a sewer line in. And so as that development happens, is it the chicken or the egg? Do you put the infrastructure in or do you wait for the development? And so that's kind of obviously up to you guys to make that call. But
Right, and this body wants to have some numbers in front of us when we're trying to make those decisions. So that's why having this magic ball and these numbers, albeit not assigned or allocated, but having them at hand is important. So thank you.
Right, and to that, even when we, like I said, Ed gave it a really good, Ed used a very good word to discuss how we'll roll in the comprehensive plan. It'll be correlated. It will, even with those short-term and long-term goals, it will still be development-driven, and it'll still be driven by the desires of this body. So once we get that in there, and if we need to get more updated numbers or more good guesses, we'll be getting that for you. I just didn't want to get ahead of ourselves. And then if you go to page 2, you'll see your water, sewer, and storm sewer. And again, some projects that are occurring right now. And sometimes you'll see that private, that means it's going to be by the private developer, but maybe we're splitting the costs, or maybe there's a little bit, so there's a line for petitions. And it kind of shows you again where we're looking at, what we're looking at doing next, and then very similarly to the freshwater, the things that have been on the old plan and then the new, because we want to just keep those projects in mind. So when we do get that instigating event, that developer interest, that city wants to spur interest in development, we can go ahead and get updated numbers for you and fill out the rest of the spreadsheet. And then, as if everything's not development driven enough, we gave you an entire section for development. We are so excited about the growth in both the residential and the industrial, and really beginning some early commercial development. It's just absolutely thrilling, but we have to put that someplace, because even with those private petitions, we still have to do bond sales. So we want to put it in there, and then sometimes we have development agreements where the city may pay a portion, so we wanted to be able to track those if they come and how they come about. So that's kind of what we have right in here. This is a way, again, for mainly our engineering crew, but for all of us to keep in mind as these new developments take shape, what the estimate infrastructure needs are to continue to grow out in those areas.
What's NDV? My brain is not working.
I was just sitting, I'm like, I need to ask what that is.
it's the Occidental property south of town, or south Kansas.
Okay.
Okay, on South Kansas. All right.
And that one is one where it goes back to the development agreement where we had agreed for that. So again, it's penciled in because we're really trying to encourage the growth of that property, but we have to remember as we look out that we'd signed a development agreement that said we would cover those costs. So we wanted to get that in that plan.
But does it stand for something? What does NDV stand for?
Oh, it's their company.
I know, it's,
I don't know.
yeah,
Put a pen in that and bring back.
Okay.
yeah, I remember that now.
But those costs are only triggered after they,
Do
their
their part.
development gets to a certain point. And
That's
triggers
correct.
that-
Yeah.
that-
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think if there's one more lot that has to fill in that would trigger a portion of that, and then they have to do that frontage along Kansas to complete that.
Yep.
And that's why we've kind of penciled it in 2028, just to kind of take stock in that. Okay. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have the golf course. And the distinction here, because you saw the golf course clubhouse and facilities, is this is the course itself. Again, trying to think about how do you group projects so that the people and the projects are together. So if you're going to be sending out your building maintenance people and they're going to be measuring or doing this or doing that, put the buildings all together, where these are more, this is the course itself. And you'll see those, these are pieces that we've gotten. The bridge decking and the Toro irrigation are items that have come to the top just recently from the golf course just in the past few days. So we wanted to make sure that those got on there. just needed improvements, but most of these are from their own cash reserves. As Ben said, our golf course does very well. Any questions on this, comments, things you'd like to see differently, especially since this is the first draft you've seen in quite a number of years, from my understanding?
I like the way it's laid out.
I do too.
Okay.
That's all Rebecca.
Back of the head.
Well, if you think of anything, those projects that are in the back of your mind, and you wonder why they're not on here or should they be on here, please let one of us know. We're more than happy to. Or if you're feeling like something needs to be moved up, if the timeline doesn't make sense, just reach out. We're really happy to help pivot. But like I said, when we list them, then we know when we have funding, and to say if we received a grant, some of these would move up. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go to the other fun spreadsheet you have, and that is the MER, which I apologize I put in front of the CIP. You can tell I paid a lot of attention assembling books this morning. This is your municipal equipment reserve. And again, this is as process goes, this is probably the biggest change in process, like we continue to talk about. I know since I've been here, we haven't necessarily gone over the MERS. They've just been something that each individual department head, division had as they needed them. But since we consolidated them, we thought it'd be a really good idea to go over them. You do see in other municipalities sometimes the MER list at the beginning of their budget book. We kept all of our copies up at the wrong place. So in the sheet that you have, you've got a department, you have a fund, as you noticed that Bennett gave you that fund reserve. Then there's sometimes divisions inside that, because you'll notice general fund's kind of one big pot. And so there's individual breakouts. And then it says vehicle or equipment, replacement costs. There's still some blanks. I wish we would have had more of it filled in, but again, we're moving from an older system to a newer system that has a lot more formulas and pieces. And so you have a total there of about $2.4 million in expenditures. That's where we are today. Now, again, we can kind of work a little bit if we do need to after we get done with tomorrow's session. If we need to see, okay, is this an absolute, or do we need to, see if we can get another year out of something? We can go back and have those conversations. A couple highlights in here. It does allow for 3 police vehicles with full outfitting, a backhoe for the cemetery, a mini excavator for the water department, the motor grader for the street, the mower for the parks, and some thermal imagers for fire department. Again, some things are completely put together, so you'll notice that there's an IT, an infotech MER, where the engineering printer and the Meridian Center's AV is. So again, some reorganization, some reclassification, and then just looking at what might come down the pipeline in 2027 in that kind of pooled approach.
Can we, and this is just a stupid way my brain works, can we update the patrol unit, patrol supervisor to be vehicle for that person? Because at first read, it looks like it's a position, not a vehicle.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was thinking patrol canine, I'm like, a dog costs $50,000. I was like, yeah, a dog costs. So and then I looked at the
think
5.
does.
I thought, well, maybe it's 5 dogs. And then I thought, no, lifespan of, it must be a vehicle.
This is
Okay.
great feedback. Yes, everything is a vehicle or equipment in this
Okay.
budget. Just vehicles or equipment, pretty
What
much.
is an investigator then? It says an investigator for $25,000 with a lifespan of 10.
It would be a vehicle.
It is a vehicle.
So that's like a
Sign
sedan or
person.
whatever.
Yes. It's not like a regular police car.
Oh,
It's not a
okay.
pursuit vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, and I apologize, I think I wrote 3. There's actually,
I was going to say, there's
6.
5 listed here, but you got 3 on the.
yeah, it's actually
page.
6 when you include it, but yes.
Yeah.
My mistake, I apologize.
So 6 years?
Six vehicles.
6 vehicles.
Oh, well, see, are we looking at, what
We're
are we
doing
looking
both.
at? Okay.
We're doing both. We're multitasking.
I don't, I can multitask, but when it's this,
Yeah.
I'm not, okay, we're on the highlights thing and the spreadsheet at the same
Yes.
time. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
No, and there's a typo in there. It says 3, there's actually 6. So I apologize for the typo as well. But yes, again, this is a little bit newer way of listing things and good feedback in how we title things.
Okay.
So that you guys can follow along.
I might add, I'm sure you already know this, but to kind of tie this to the conversation we were having earlier, this $2.4 million is in a MER that is split up over a period of time, and we get to a number, and that number is in a transfer line out in each department to put into this MER. So if there's an opportunity to put off the purchasing of a motor grader for a year, that then in turn extends the life of that asset, which in turn reduces the amount of the transfer needed, which in turn reduces the overall budget. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to see where we can be more prudent in the way we are replacing our assets, if we can. What we don't want to do is not replace assets and then they break and we don't have them, because there's a balance.
Right, and that MER division that's at the top of your spreadsheet, that is the budget, basically, that the funds will go into. That's who's going to be spending it. So you see fire and EMS, cemetery, park, engineering, street, IT, police, airport. So you can kind of go through and see where everybody is expending those funds from their departmental budgets. And so we have that opportunity to kind of get this whole bigger picture, if you will. And there's not really anything new except for the fact it's on one spreadsheet. The biggest new things is that the IT things are no longer assigned to each individual department, that they're under IT. And then there were some things that we moved because, and I'll give IT as an example. As times change, what we buy changes, and sometimes our process doesn't change. So we had in IT, MER, we had equipment being put in there that I noticed we were paying for every year. And it seemed odd to me that it's an equipment reserve, but we have to pay for it every year. That felt operational. Well, what had happened was we used to pay for a physical thing, and now we pay for a subscription thing, right? So now we have to move that.
From a CapEx to an OpEx.
Yeah, and so that's also something we've done in here a lot, is that as times have changed, we can't just keep doing the same thing we were always doing. It's like, well, we always pay for our server out of here. Well, the server's digital now. That's a really good example of, those are some, I want to say there's not any, but there are a few of those changes of double checking, are our operational items coming out of operations? Anything else, Ben, that I'm missing on this? Because this spreadsheet's your baby. I literally took a snapshot of a beautiful workbook with pivot tables and wonderful prediction models and printed it.
Yeah, I think the usefulness of this comes next year when we ask departments to come in and change or, edit this. And what this will allow us to do is filter those transfers all the way down to make sure what we've got selected to replace is tied into the transfers. And it makes it a lot easier.
So I want to make sure I understand, because there's a lot of things we've listened to, heard, right, and I think if I don't miss something, but all of the MERs have traditionally been with each department. Is that correct? As a rule. So when in their own departmental budgets. So this is all in one bucket now.
I'm going to say yes, but it's actually always been in one bucket.
Yeah.
Okay, because yeah.
But there's a transfer line from the one bucket, especially in general fund, it's the 290. So it's already all living together.
Because it hasn't been portrayed that way.
Right.
as a rule. So one thinks that because of the individual budgets and that
Right.
they are keeping track of what they have in
Right.
there. But you're saying that this has always been in,
290
A
for,
budget.
for general fund, yes.
okay.
Yeah, and each department was considered by itself, and it was really
Yes.
hard to pull it all together and say, well, if fire needs this, but police can wait on this, say, 6 months, then you can make that, you can have that right there in one place. You just see it in one place. And that's what this does, is allow us to combine everything and then look at it, wholly across the city.
You're getting to see what finance operationally has seen forever.
We haven't had the visibility by it being on one sheet.
Yeah, exactly.
We had to go look at the wastewater sheet or the PD sheet or whatever, and we didn't have the visibility that this body wants and that new administration
That's
wants
a
and
good way to
everything.
put it
So
right there.
It
Yeah.
gives us better visibility of it
Yeah.
as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
because honestly, in all my years here, I felt like I was looking at separate MERs.
Yeah.
I mean, literal
Yeah,
separate
yeah.
MERs,
Mm-hmm.
not a display of what is all with others in one bucket.
Right. And that's why we asked
Okay.
Ben to create this for us, because
Okay.
we're just trying to reflect what's actually happening in the finances. And like the mayor said, there was an ask of us. We didn't do this just because it was a fun project. But there was an ask for
Well, I thought it was.
more,
Transparency
Ben
and
loves it.
visibility.
yeah, more transparency, more visibility, again, to keep building that trust with the community as a whole.
If,
Okay.
Kathy, I'd love to give you an example of what we did during this process that allowed us to make a purchase that we otherwise wouldn't have made. In the airport fund has 3 MERS, 3 different spreadsheets, 1 bucket, but essentially treated as 3 different buckets. The industrial operations MER, the airport operations MER, the industrial airport MER, and the FBO. Each MER had its assets listed and the life of that asset and the yearly transfer of that asset. MER 1 had assets that had a life of up to 10 years, and so you had transfers lined out for 10 years. MER number 2 had assets that had a 15 or 20-year span, so you had essentially transfers for 15 years in MER 2. MER 3, 10 years. So you had different life expectancies of assets, which had triggered different transfers to that MER from the airport fund. The airport said, we need a fuel truck. We need an updated fuel truck. The operations MER doesn't have enough cash. How can we make that happen? So we're trying to figure out how can we, do we have money in economic development? Do we have some cash? Do we have to go to the county? Like, how do we do this? With this philosophy, what we did is we put all of that cash in one bucket and on one spreadsheet. It was always in the same bucket, excuse me. But we put it all on one spreadsheet and we said, all right, MER 1, MER 2, MER 3 has now X cash. That cash, over a more conservative approach, not 15 years, more like 7 to 8 years, requires a transfer amount of this number. We were transferring this number, so we were able to reduce, we were able to, I'm not saying that we are, but we're able to reduce the amount of transfer out into that MER. That's one. Number 2, because we combined the cash and because our transfer amount reduced, it freed up cash this year, which allowed him to buy his truck because we combined it all in one bucket. It's like, I'm looking at my savings account to purchase a new car, but I don't have enough money in there. But I do have savings in my roof replacement fund, even though I don't need my roof replacement fund today. But if I combined them together, I'd say, I have enough cash to replace my car, and in 10 years, I'll have enough money to replace my roof. It's a different philosophy, but it really it's allowing us to do the things we need, as long as we're being prudent and careful of what is coming down the pipeline that may not be paid for cash. Because that is that could potentially be a liability. It will be part of a lease, a loan, bond, cash, whatever that may be. So it's not just, oh, let's just spend down our cash. It's what makes sense.
Yeah.
But remember, it may come come sooner. Let's be prepared for it.
Well, I was telling Rich at break time, that's what we do in our own home. We have one bucket, but I keep little spreadsheets. So I know, and then if I have to take from this one to put in this one because this need over here is greater, that's, I like to divide the money out and see what, and I think you do better when you designate or you earmark for certain things. It doesn't mean that they're strictly for that item, and you can make some different decisions, some changes, and that's what we have done. We do, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
I understand.
and again, I know I just said this, but I think it's important to remind leadership staff and remind you that this new approach requires that we continue to do what we've been doing, which is every department still assessing their needs, putting it on paper, but also taking that balcony view and saying, how can we make the most? Both have to happen for this to work. If we stop doing this, it's not going to be successful. If we stop doing what we're doing, this part is not going to be successful. So we have to continue to do that together.
Thank you.
Air conditioner's working well.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I think that probably wraps up what I had to go over on the CIP and the MER. Very happy to answer any other questions, priorities, differences.
This wasn't broke down like this last time.
No, this is a new approach.
I like this.
Okay.
This was a lot easier to understand for me, anyway.
Well, thank you.
I liked this. I was able to follow along a lot easier, yeah.
Who can we assign credit to this new approach?
I see fingers pointing. I don't know. I think it's all our wonderful agreement with our financial consultant, Baker Tilly. You know, if you keep your finances in order, then it really pays off in the end. So we have a really great financial advisor that's been a huge help in helping guide our decisions.
Yes, much easier to.
Is there anything you would like, so tomorrow, to set up a conversation for tomorrow, and I know we're ahead of schedule, we plan on talking more about those, the impact on levies, the more normal previous year's conversations will happen tomorrow. We will bring back those cost-saving opportunities, and we'll delve into those, like credit card fees. We'll also talk about department asks. So we did have asks for new staffing. We'll talk about those. Those are not folded into this budget. So anything tomorrow will be above and beyond what we've talked about already.
And actually, just to clarify, tomorrow we will go over the whole budget. Before we break for the day today, I will give you your pages so that if you want to take them home and review them before tomorrow, I have them printed and ready to go.
There'll be a test tomorrow morning.
There'll be a test.
Is there any information that you have received in previous years that you'd like for us to bring back that you really like, or something new that you've seen or can think of that, I mean, we've opened this process up, so nothing's off the table. Whatever you'd like to see to help you make a more informed decision.
Well,
Walk me through the decision timeline that we're looking at, please. So we have this meeting today, we have tomorrow's meeting, and then what is the out timelines and meetings for decisions?
And
We're not
as
making
you're-
a decision
No.
tomorrow.
No.
Okay, so,
And as you're doing that, does the information tomorrow actually give us what we're going to be looking at in the timeline that Rich is, I mean, are we going to have,
because we still got to pin in what we think, what the actual assessed values, I mean, what the forecast comes in.
Well, we have assessed valuation.
We now have that?
Yes.
Yeah.
We
It'll be
set-
tomorrow.
Yeah. We set these meetings knowing that staff had already had almost a week with assessed valuation.
All right.
So your numbers are going to be, but what we're presenting you is
Flat.
a revenue neutral
Right.
approach. So your revenue neutral rate decision is July 14th at your regular meeting. And then the city manager's budget, this is just your calendar. Daniela can talk to the other pieces, is July 28th. That's usually when you're, the big budget, any asks, you kind of get your full last overview. Publication deadline is August 11th. You would do the public hearing and and adopt the budget on August 25th. So currently, we just have the one more work session,
When is that work?
July 14th.
That is
That
if
work
we
session
need
is
it.
when?
It's prior to the city commission meeting on July 14th.
That was a if needed, wasn't it? I
Yes.
think I wrote that down as
Yes.
as
Yeah.
needed. So, but I've penciled it in.
And, yeah.
Did that answer your question, Rich?
Yeah.
I think it would be prudent to include a number, and it would just be a stab number, for a potential public-private development for the depot building and for 320. Obviously, that's, in the future, we don't know what that's going to look like. But let's just say we had a developer come in and they made a proposal and they said, okay, you, the city, we want you to contribute $1 million. We'll put in 5 or whatever. It doesn't matter what the number is, but we don't have anything plugged in for a portion of
Right.
ours. And I think it would be, and instead of just being blindsided and scrambling, and that doesn't make sense. We've really worked hard over the last number of years to carefully plan ahead, 2, 3, 5 years, and I think that would just be prudent to put a plug number in for a potential public-private development agreement.
If we do that, if you plug a number in, that doesn't necessarily have to factor into a mill levy increase or anything like that. It's just
That would only be triggered by action happening on the ground.
And I say that because, again, if the public sees that, or they may think that that's what that their taxes are going to.
So then we
Yes.
just need to be very clear with our
Yeah.
communication about
Yeah.
what we're doing and why.
This is a possibility, a think forward, but no action taken on it.
And I don't even know what that number would be, if it'd be $1 million, $2 million, I don't know. But
I'm torn. I mean, because on one hand, I love the idea of establishing a plan and working a plan and knowing in out years what monies might be there and everything. I am hesitant to put a dollar amount to that because the moment somebody thinks that there's a dollar amount there, they are going to want to sweep it. But if development knows that there's a partnership opportunity there, then that might bubble up opportunity. So I'm all over the place on that.
No, I am.
yeah,
I'm
there's
thinking
pros
about-
and cons to
Yeah.
both sides, but I think it's still prudent for us to consider that.
Not an answer for today, but maybe we'll get some more clarity from you all tomorrow. But usually, our process has been, if you did want to do something like that, that would come out of that economic development fund I mentioned with sales tax dollars, kind of parallel to your mill levy. And I know that you'll hear this tomorrow morning when you do agenda review, but I believe that that whole district is a topic for Tuesday night's meeting. So it may be something we even come back to, in
Yeah, I
that
think it's worth,
process.
actually, my hope, and I hope Chris and Zach would agree here, would be that we have that conversation on Tuesday, because Tuesday night will be a very high-level overview of what the structural analysis came back for the depot, and then a conversation about what you'd like to see in that RFP before we put it out, which may or may not include a match or a cost or this is what we're willing to put in, or maybe not. Maybe you want to assess that after those bids come in. So you're a week ahead of schedule.
Just trying to
you.
think
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
Yeah, very good.
What else? know you're anxiously awaiting to find out what assessed valuation did increase for around 4% was the increase this year.
So it went up 4%?
4.95. 5. Give me 1 second, I can tell you. It's on my here.
4.25.
25. 4.25.
Well, there go the,
Well, it beats the heck out of 11 or 12.
I don't disagree with that, but I also understand consecutive increases, 3 and 4 years. And again, parts of the community, some, and I was there one day, I was there one time, that don't understand how those increases come about. They automatically think it comes from us.
Yep.
And so here we go again. We're going to hear it again. Taxes are going up. Insurance costs are going to go up. We're going to hear all of this. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be negative Nanny, but that's the reality. And once people start seeing this and hearing it, this is where it's going to be.
We'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, and mill levy trends, assessed valuation trends, we'll have all that, the normal conversation tomorrow and help put it all together.
Sales tax, make sure you have as much on sales tax as possible. I mean, it's one of those double-edged swords. We get the email that says sales tax for this month has beat expectations or whatever, and while at first blush it sounds like, oh great, more revenue's coming in and everything. It's also breaking the back because I don't have a feel that it's more consumption. It's more sales taxes because of higher prices. You know, and that I can't take any joy in increased revenue because bread costs more at the store.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Boy.
Tomorrow we'll also review bond and interest. Is that an accurate statement? And we will review, we'll also bring back to you the asks from external agencies. Kind of the normal stuff. I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah. Our 2027 budget priorities. So similar to what we did at the beginning of this presentation for 2026, we will talk about what is continuing into 2027 and what we're kicking off in 2027 to give you an idea of where monies are going as far as programming and priorities for the year. Okay, it's 11 o'clock, so if you don't have anything else, I don't think anybody's feelings would be hurt if we wrap this up early.
Awesome.
Good job,
All right.
ladies. Good job. For everyone.
Okay,
Thank you.
Oh, yes. We have an agenda
review.
review tomorrow morning, 7:30.
Okay,
See you bright and early.
all right.
In the morning.
Part of the agenda tomorrow is going to be an executive session after you're done with all of the budget stuff.
Okay. So we may not be in here at 8.
We will have the agenda review, then after agenda review, we will have the budget work session. After the budget work session, we will request an executive session.
okay.
So it'll be at the very end.
Oh, okay, okay. All right.
Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.